If there's one thing that Rockstar games have always been known for over the years, then it's gotta be the amount of controversy their games have garnered. And I'd say that no better example of that is all the titles they brought out during the early to mid-2000s, with the Grand Theft Auto games all the way through to the Manhunt series. Without a doubt though, what's been one of their most unique games ever made was Bully for the PlayStation 2.
Hopkins, go home!
Replacing vehicular theft with skateboards and BMX bikes, assault with a deadly weapon with fireworks and bags of marbles, and the backdrop of a filthy, crime-ridden city with that of a preppy boarding school.
Not bad, Pete. Not bad at all.
Even then, despite that massive shift in tone, this thing still managed to piss a whole bunch of people off. Even though, in reality, once you finally got to playing it, you realised that was completely misdirected. Now, the premise in this one is you're playing as a 15-year-old kid named Jimmy Hopkins, who makes Bart Simpson look like Christopher Robin.
What was his name again?
Jimmy.
Jimmy. Right.
I'm done with you.
Jimmy's been expelled from more schools than he can even count, with his mum and new stepdad dropping him off at Bulworth Academy, before they then jet off on their honeymoon. And then he soon learns that the entire place is in complete disarray, with students broken up into various cliques, actively disliking and even attacking each other.
Really scared right now, really scared. I take down linebackers every day, pal.
Whatever, pretty boy. You'll get yours.
Along with the teaching staff either being completely oblivious to the whole thing or just unable to find the energy to even care, being really ineffective at maintaining any sense of order. So yeah, just like actual schools.
You are blind, old man, blind.
And you are leaving.
The only people that even seem to really give Jimmy the time of day here are a shy kid named Petey and another one named Gary. The latter who is friendly enough early on, but then later on becomes the antagonist, around the same time he conveniently stops taking his meds.
I should have stopped taking those pills ages ago.
But despite how crappy that early reception might be, playing as Jimmy in this game is really a power fantasy of being the kind of kid I think we all wanted to be back in high school. I mean, he gets to kiss all the girls, he stands up against the bullies, but then after all of that, he still gets good grades in class.
Excellent work today, Mr. Hopkins.
Early on in the story, you unlock a skateboard that you can whip out at any time and freely ride around on. Yeah, something which you absolutely would not get away with in real life. Along with a BMX bike later on, which lets you skip class at any time so you can head into the nearby town.
I'm getting good at this.
So it's kind of ironic how the writing keeps trying to act like this school is the worst place on earth, and yet as far as we can tell, Jimmy seems to be getting a pretty sweet deal out of things.
You're so bad.
I don't know, maybe the whole boarding school premise is supposed to be depressing, and truthfully, it is a little bit hard for me to relate there. You know, as I didn't go to boarding school back then due to the fact that my parents loved me.
What are you talking about?
But still, that whole thing of these different cliques is more or less universal to, I think, every single high school. And that's really the whole focus of the story, with there being 5 chapters in the game all up, where throughout each one of these, Jimmy's taken on one of these main groups and ultimately winning them over.
Wouldn't advise messing with them, at least not yet.
With each mission you do for a faction, generally improving your overall standing with them, kinda similar to the whole respect system in San Andreas. With the first chapter being the bullies, the second one being the greasers, the third being the preppies, the fourth the jocks, and then finally in the 5th chapter, Jimmy has to bring all these guys back together again after Gary turns everyone against him.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too how this whole thing with Gary just comes out of nowhere, with this whole plot of him deciding he's going to screw Jimmy over, and then somehow make the entire school hate him.
Time and tide wait for no man, my friend.
And although he shows up quite a fair bit at the start, it is kind of weird how you don't really see him that much after the first chapter. I think he shows up in maybe 2 or 3 cinematics in total, but more often than not, he's just pulling the strings from the sidelines.
Don't act dumb. You said his mom was also legally his aunt and that he probably had webbed toes.
I don't. Well, just only on one foot.
It is, however, definitely keeping in Rockstar's writing traditions, though, with the protagonist's so-called buddies eventually turning on them. You know, similar to Lance in Vice City, and then Big Smoke and Ryder in San Andreas. Oh, sorry, spoilers.
It ain't me, fool!
Speaking of Grand Theft Auto, there is actually a few mechanics and ideas here which would not only become prominent in later GTA games, but also just Rockstar games. Along with a bunch of them also being things we've also seen in previous titles.
Damn, I'm good.
I mean, for starters, this whole idea of different factions and cliques is no different to how the gangs worked in the GTA series, and then eventually even through to Red Dead Redemption. The combat system, although it copies a hell of a lot from the Warriors, is also an early example of one of Rockstar's games that lets you grapple enemies. And although this whole night and day cycle has always been a thing in their earlier titles, it's nowhere near developed as it is here in Bully, to the point that NPC activity changes completely at nighttime, where certain missions aren't going to even be active. You can get soda from vending machines to refill your health, again, similar to GTA 4, and you've even got the option to slide down ladders, which, as far as I can remember, wasn't even something available in San Andreas. Not to mention that the way you've got these smaller one-off interactions with other characters that don't quite serve as full missions is also very similar to those smaller encounters you had in GTA 4 as well, and then eventually the Red Dead games.
Excuse me?
Even through to that mechanic where you can interact with the NPCs in either a positive or negative way.
How's it going?
Hi, I mean you.
And then what's also kind of funny is to consider that all of this stuff takes place in the same universe as Rockstar's other games, like Manhunt, which is to say that somewhere miles away, James Cash is probably slicing someone's head off or suffocating them with a plastic bag. Yeah, well, Jimmy's down here giving someone a wedgie or pinching a girl's butt.
Why does it always have to be me?
The other thing is that the world in this really does feel truly immersive, which is something that almost every single Rockstar title has managed to capture in one way or another. The students in the faculty of Bulworth Academy, they aren't just like randomly generated. There's 60 or so here in total, and every single one of these has unique appearance and personality.
Smile! Very well, you meet my needs and I'll work for you.
There's even a whole little side task where you can photograph every single kid to fill in this yearbook. And it's downright charming the way they all pose and smile when you stick a camera in their face.
¿Qué pasa?
Especially the way the younger kids brighten up when they see Jimmy. I mean, it's just absolutely wholesome.
You're on camera.
Hi.
It's almost kind of like an active ecosystem with these different student groups moving around and going about their daily lives. And then it's kind of common to see these bigger and tougher kids picking on the smaller ones, you know, like lions going after zebras or gazelles.
Oh, thanks so much, Jimmy.
Throughout the year, you'll notice how the environment changes with each season. For instance, around Halloween, there's going to be spooky decorations all strung up. And then around Christmas, the whole place is covered in snow, with all the kids now wearing scarves and beanies.
Loser!
And then even the traction when you're riding on skateboards and bikes being more slippery. And I always find myself really getting into that seasonal aspect as well, even changing my clothes to match what the weather is.
Whatever, Jimmy.
This is also another Rockstar game which runs on the Renderware engine, but they've once again found a way here to make that engine stand out and really put it to good use, making sure it still has that look that the other Rockstar entries from the time used to have. There's no licensed music though, like what we got in the GTA games to really set the era, but the soundtrack has some incredibly catchy jingles that are going to absolutely get stuck in your head. I mean, it's probably been over 10 or so years since I last played this, and it was still a total memory unlocked moment hearing some of these tracks again.
What are you listening to?
Instead of the police or the standard wanted system, instead you've got a trouble meter that attracts the attention of the prefects if you cause too much trouble. And what I think is a neat touch too is how if the other kids are picking on you, if you run to a nearby prefect like a little bitch, they'll deal with the attacker. What I also find really interesting off the back of that as well is how if you bully the littler kids or even girls, you get in even bigger trouble. I mean, Rockstar might let the player do some heinous things in games like Manhunt, but they were making it pretty clear here that you don't go around punching down.
I am going to beat you now.
And overall, it's definitely a much more light-hearted, innocent experience, you know, compared to the other kind of things that these guys used to work on. For instance, despite having all of these weapons and items, none of them are really all that dangerous or life-threatening. Your ranged weapons consist of a slingshot, a bottle rocket launcher, and a spud gun, neither of which look like they're even doing all that much damage.
I'm a physical specimen.
When you're getting chased by people, you can drop firecrackers or a bag of marbles to trip them up, and about all it's missing there is that stock sound effect of someone slipping on a banana peel.
Stop that or I'll beat you.
And when you beat someone in a fight, they're very clearly just writhing around on the ground in agony, with the wind knocked out of their sails. There's no drugs, there's barely any sexual references, and I think about the worst words you hear people say here is during the third chapter, when everyone keeps referring to one of the female characters as a slut.
She's cheating on me, man. I know she is. The little slut. Oh, it's killing me. Me.
And compared to the kind of language that 15-year-old kids actually used back then, I mean, this sounds like a church hymn in comparison. What you're actually doing instead, though, is causing deep-seated psychological and emotional trauma. The kind of thing that comes from giving kids atomic wedgies or swirlies.
So that's what a turd tastes like.
Yeah, the kind of shit as well that ends up with someone needing counselling 15 years later.
I'm done with you.
When you break the whole thing down and really get to the core, though, Bully is a beat-em-up. And overall, it's got a pretty decent combat system, mostly, which is handy because you're going to be spending a lot of time getting into fistfights. Definitely takes a lot of cues from The Warriors, one of Rockstar's earlier titles, mostly in the way that you target enemies, and then also how their health is displayed on a bar on the ground. There's a bunch of basic combos to learn, none of which are all that hard to memorize, and it's just a combination of pressing the attack button a set amount of times, followed by holding it down, which gives you moves like being able to leg sweep, sweep the leg.
Sweep the leg.
You can perform side kicks, roundhouse kicks, and ground stomps. And then later on in the game, you're able to throw someone to the ground and knee them in the junk. Along with that, you can grapple enemies and throw them around, along with picking up various weapons off the ground like bats and pipes. And then when someone's health is low enough, you can humiliate them for a quick finishing move, using such timeless classics as stop hitting yourself.
What's the matter? Why you hitting yourself?
Or put to use one of the most dangerous finishing moves that adolescence has ever conceived with the dreaded Chinese burn.
That's what you get.
Luckily too, it seems that every single student in the game's got a can of soda in their pocket, which is handy because soda refills a chunk of your health, making the whole thing overall a pretty forgiving and easy combat system. With most of these moves also being taught to Jimmy by an old war veteran who happens to live behind an abandoned bus on the school grounds. Because, yeah, that's comforting.
Classified move, real special army stuff.
Cool.
It is pretty funny though, have an old mate hand down these tried and tested combat moves in exchange for radio transistors hidden around the map. Okay?
I can use that.
About the only issue I've got with the combat is that it doesn't really seem to factor in for multiple enemies. And if you're ever going up against more than a couple of people at once, which is common, you're probably gonna get your ass kicked, as there's just no effective means to control bigger groups at once. Really making me miss that move in The Warriors, how you could just throw your entire body at a bunch of enemies. Having said that though, that is at least kind of accurate, you know, in the sense that Jimmy really is a bit of a pipsqueak. And realistically, if he's going to be outnumbered, he's probably going to struggle if not lose in a fight.
You can hit harder than that.
In fact, given his pint-sized stature, the game won't even let you grapple the bigger students, who are just going to push you back like you're a drunk cougar high on Old Spice fumes. Still though, for what it is, it's a decent enough system. It's just a bit of a shame that it never really goes any further than a bunch of basic combos and grapple moves.
Good work. Now go out there and kick some ass.
And then the fact that all of the boss fights are more or less just the same as the basic enemies, but with a bunch load more health points. In fact, the only real deviation you get is this whole boxing minigame where it's like the whole thing's turned into Super Punch-Out, as you're now dodging these wild, highly telegraphed haymakers and fighting back with combos of your own, as you try to knock all your opponents out.
Oh, don't worry. Jimmy's tough.
The other component that makes up the Bully experience is all the various classes and missions.
We've got a lot of work before us today.
Now, the way this whole thing works is that throughout the game, there's a constant clock ticking away with that never-ending night and day cycle. You've got the option to attend class at school at both 9 AM and then another one at 1 PM. But then outside of that, you're free to go off and complete story missions or bugger around with all the side content. The thing is though, while these classes are optional, taking them is actually pretty useful, because not only do they give you some handy bonuses, but when you've finished all 5 of them, you no longer have to actually attend that specific class, which ends up freeing up more time.
Okay, son. You've learned what there is to learn. Anytime you want to come tool around, you're welcome to.
One of the first ones you're likely to do is English, which is a word jumble where you've got to rearrange letters to form as many words as possible. And seeing as I'm a fan of Countdown, or more importantly, Rachel Riley from Countdown, overall I've had a lot of fun with these, especially those later classes where it does get genuinely tricky.
Keep it up.
The bonus you get from this one gives you the ability to apologize to attackers or prefects, essentially removing your wanted level. As for the second class, well, most likely that's going to be the art class, which is a little bit weirder. Now, this is a completely unique minigame where you've got to cut out boxes on a canvas to reveal a painting underneath, without these icons smacking into the line before you can complete a shape. Eventually uncovering a series of increasingly suggestive images of the art teacher Miss Phillips, who, by the way, is a fucking smoke show.
Nice work, Jimmy. You're quite the photographer.
Definitely the most bizarre minigame though, but also I think one of the most useful, because the bonus for finishing this one increases the health boost you get from kissing girls. Yeah, truly an important skill.
That's how you do it!
After this, there's the chemistry class, which is by far the easiest. Now, this is just a series of button prompts which move so slowly that it's pretty much unfailable. Which then goes on to allow all the various weapons to spawn back in Jimmy's bedroom. Then finally, for the first chapter, you've got the gym classes, a couple of which teach you some new combat moves, with the other three being dodgeball matches against the other cliques that somehow increase weapon accuracy.
No sweat!
Oh yeah, and I think it's pretty funny as well how every time you play, they side you with the nerds. Oh yeah, and I should mention as well that I got my fucking ass handed to me at first here, before realizing that jumping and then throwing that dodgeball makes it more or less impossible for the AI to avoid it. Anyway, once you get to that second chapter, another two classes get added as well, with shop class and photography. With shop class easily being the most useful, because not only does this unlock Jimmy's bike, which always spawns in nearby garages, but then also because the ensuing classes let you improve this bike to the point that it becomes one of the fastest modes of transportation.
You have some real skill there, son.
The only problem is that the class has these incredibly specific timing inputs for all these prompts. And the only way that I was able to beat them was to know what they were beforehand, and then start mashing buttons before those on-screen prompts even came up.
Okay, see you next time, Jim.
As for the photography class, well, this one just feels like it's ticking off the boxes more than anything else. And all you unlock from this is the ability to store more photos on your memory card, as well as unlocking a digital camera which shoots in color instead of black and white.
You're looking like a real lady killer, Jimmy.
You do, however, get a pretty sweet framed photo of Miss Phillips that then appears in your bedroom, so yeah, it's got that going for it.
That's rad.
Oh yeah, and like with everything else, it comes with the best bonus of freeing up all of your time, and letting you just dick around, which is where this thing truly shines. Especially from chapter 2 and on, when the nearby town of Bulworth actually opens up, and then all of these new activities, missions and errands start to appear.
Jim, you're a stand-up fella.
Like back at school, for instance, you're just doing simple errands like grabbing some toilet paper for someone trapped in the shitter.
I will beat you for that.
But then once you get to town, it's often a bunch of jobs for these adults, like delivering food or finding a hobo's prescription pills in a nearby alley.
Thanks for the help, kid.
You can now buy clothes, you can get haircuts, you can mow lawns for extra cash, or even take on a paper route, which is in no way a throwback to the old paperboy games from the 1980s. You can even go hitting up walls with graffiti, which even outright reuses the exact same mechanic from the Warriors. And what kind of Rockstar game would it be without a bunch of racing missions?
I always win!
If you can't be arsed riding all the way back to the school, well, there's convenient bus stops placed around the town which work as fast travel points. And just like in school, if you fuck around, you're gonna find out, with the Bulworth cops easily able to overpower Jimmy and arrest him if he starts any kind of trouble.
You're coming with me!
You do start to get some pretty fun story missions from this point on as well, considering that all of the stuff in that first chapter was relegated to the school campus. Like protecting one of the nerds during his speech to run for class president, schwacking bullies with your slingshot before they can rush the stage.
Good. I've always been a politician at heart.
There's a pretty cool mission set around Halloween where Jimmy and Gary go around pranking the other students, with Jimmy dressed like Johnny from that one scene in The Karate Kid when he beats the crap out of Danny LaRusso. And Gary dressed like... yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Another one has you getting back the diary for one of the nerdy girls who's being bullied by the cheerleaders, which ends up with the nerdy girl then falling in love with Jimmy. Yeah, the first of many. Which is actually a bit of a running theme they've got going on there, with a girl in each clique eventually starting to like him. The first chapter ends with a fight against the so-called leader of the bullies, a kid named Russell, who makes Forrest Gump seem like Isaac Newton.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
bad, Russell.
Though despite being a bit of a dickhead early on here, he actually ends up being one of the most endearing characters in the entire game.
Jeez, that dumb kid's really strong.
Dumb?
Hey, be good.
No,
Be good.
Not you, Einstein, not you.
Which also starts the turning point for Gary's whole villain arc, with him locking Jimmy into an arena against this guy like he's Batman getting trapped in to fight with Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, there's even a move during this fight where it looks like he's trying to break Jimmy's back.
Of course.
Anyway, from the second chapter and on is when you really know you're playing a Rockstar game, because it seems that every second mission is just introducing a new minigame or mechanic. Like this point here when you go on a date with the preppy girl to the nearby carnival, which again, in typical Rockstar fashion, contains a whole bunch of minigames.
You have to have a mean right hook, son.
Which even earns you tickets you can spend on prizes like an electric scooter, along with just, you know, riding roller coasters or heading into the freak show to see your mum. You got that boxing gym in the nearby town as well, which has that whole side mode where you got to beat a bunch of preps in a boxing match, which not only unlocks a save point, but also increases your overall punching damage. But even the missions you get from people back at school are often going to lead you into town.
Is this legal?
Like all the ones you do for the lunch lady Edna, who looks like one of the psychos out of the Dead Rising games.
Hey, Edna, you old bat. I got your stuff. Oh, whoa.
The absolute standout by far has to be the one where you meet the middle-aged, balding gym teacher in town, who then tasks you with the very important assignment of sneaking into the girls' dorm room at night time to then rummage through their dirty laundry and collect their underpants.
Seriously?
Yeah, dog, that's a mission in this game.
But you'll have to be discreet.
But even that does have ramifications, because this same teacher ends up getting fired later on for hitting on one of the female students.
She got expelled because she complained about Mr. Burton hitting on her.
Burton? Well, he's fired.
So it's not just thrown in there as this random creep who gets away with this shit, showing that all these actions have consequences.
Good boy!
There's another similar mission later on where Jimmy goes around taking sneaky photos of one of the cheerleaders, even one while she's in the shower, which, yeah, you know, ends up ruining the girl's reputation, even if, to be fair, she was a bit of a bitch to begin with.
My life is over.
But even then, Jimmy has to make things right later on, by going around town tearing down posters of her that have been strewn around.
You vandal!
I'd say that overall as well, the third chapter is probably when this whole thing peaks, because by that point you've unlocked most of the core mechanics and have probably finished a few of the classes, allowing you to free roam a hell of a lot more. The clique for chapter 3 is the Greasers, who become antagonistic towards Jimmy over something he could have arguably avoided. I mean, there's a mission earlier on where one of them helps him out in a fight with the preppies, only for Jimmy to then not return the favor at the beginning of the third chapter, which is what then pisses this whole group off.
I said he needs your help, man.
Do I look like a charity service?
Either way though, it does at least lead to some pretty funny interactions between Jimmy and the greaser leader Johnny. Not to mention Johnny's apparent girlfriend Lola.
Women. Look at you both. You're pathetic.
But I thought she liked me.
Where, like I said, everyone drops the S-bomb when talking about it like it's a comma.
Definitely.
At one point, she pisses them all off so much that you've got to escape the entire greaser clique on the back of a bike, shooting at all these guys chasing after you with a slingshot like it's the end of Metal Gear Solid 3 or something. I do think the main problem Bully has is the same that a lot of Rockstar games end up having, in the sense that it really does just kind of go on, with that last 5th chapter really kind of dragging its feet. And while it's not like any of these missions are necessarily bad, it's not really adding in anything all that new by that point. In fact, one of the missions is an outright repeat of an earlier one, where you got to sneak into the local asylum to break someone out. Oh yeah, an asylum which happens to be right next door to the school. Again, comforting.
Ain't nothing crazy about what I did, and you know it.
If anything though, this chapter's meant to be more of a narrative thing, finally bringing Gary back and showcasing Jimmy's downfall. Considering that at the start of this chapter, pretty much everyone in the school seems to love him.
Great, thank you for that show, darling.
Only it's during his newfound hubris that he then trips and stumbles into this spiral, as this entire empire he's built just crumbles around him like he's a 15-year-old Tony Montana.
How was that a minor setback?
Losers! Oh, shut up, you fat dork.
Only lucky for him, the whole thing doesn't end with a double-barrel shotgun being put into his back and blasted off at point-blank range. Yes, somehow, Gary returned. and he's now made the entire school turn on Jimmy, eventually even getting him expelled.
You are leaving the academy to attend to your education elsewhere. Jimmy down!
Where he has to work alongside the final clique in the game, the Townies, made up of kids who were kicked out of Bullworth. With this whole epic final sequence chasing Gary to the top of the school in the middle of a thunderstorm like it's the side of the Church of Notre Dame or something. Ending in the whole thing being wrapped up in a neat little package is the principal managed to hear the whole thing where Gary spilled the beans and confessed his guilt. Yeah, what a dumbass.
You know, I think I may have judged you too unfairly, boy.
And that right there is the bully experience.
But life is certainly going to get easier.
Good job! Sweet win!
With the game then giving you unlimited time to free roam to go back and complete everything else you missed. Even now seeing some of those formerly expelled kids walking around on campus, which is a nice touch.
What are you doing, Jimmy? You busy?
I do think it is important to distinguish which version of the game you're actually playing, with there being a couple of ways to play this thing. First off, you've got that original version on the PlayStation 2, simply titled Bully or Canis Canem Edit if you're living in Kangaroo Land. But then there's also the so-called Scholarship Edition they released in 2008 for the Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii and the PC.
Yeah, sure.
Something which I've always had a bit of a mixed opinion on. Firstly, because the updated visuals do vastly change how the game looks overall.
Well, just give it back.
Are you threatening me, Metal Mouth?
No, just give it back. You can't just steal things from me.
Unfortunately for you, my pig ugly friend, that is exactly what I can do.
Now this version doesn't use renderware, instead it runs on the Gamebryo engine, used in games like Fallout 3. Which really does make it look like an entirely different game. And it's not helping either that a lot of the textures and the character models have been overhauled too, changing their basic appearance.
Just that you're friends with that sociopath Gary.
Socio what?
There's also some pretty major gameplay changes, like adding twice the amount of classes to get through and even more subjects, which sounds good on paper, but really just kind of seems like it's padding things out. Now you've got a biology class, geography, maths, and music. And while I got nothing against any of those subjects, I just kind of felt like there was more than enough stuff there to begin with, and literally doubling the amount of classes just doesn't feel necessary. The other thing is that this version is notoriously buggy, and in fact getting it to work on the PC to begin with was more or less impossible. And then to top the whole thing off, it's not even developed in-house by Rockstar. It was handed off to another team called Mad Dog Software. Overall, I don't think it really matters, and it's not going to ruin your experience if you go with that Scholarship Edition. But at the end of the day, like, that original game, it still feels like the best way to play it. You know, because that's the one that Rockstar originally shipped.
Very good!
Either way, though, it is kind of mind-boggling as to why neither of these games ever managed to garner a huge success, making it one of Rockstar's most underperforming IPs. According to what information I could find online, both the PS2 and the Scholarship Edition managed to sell around 1.5 million copies. And while that doesn't sound all too bad, it's a drop in the ocean compared to the 17 million copies that something like San Andreas sold. Even GTA 3 apparently sold almost 12 million. Fuck! I remember there being rumours for ages that they were working on a sequel for this, and there was lots of supposed leaks that you're going to play as a girl in the second one, which would have been awesome. But then the word is that they shelved it and then focused on other projects. You know, which is to say that they just focused more on the kind of games that they knew would make them money. Which really makes that whole era a really bizarre time for Rockstar games. I mean, the Warriors didn't sell all that great either, and there was supposedly a whole bunch of internal drama within the company over Manhunt 2.
Now you got the hang of it.
And have you ever noticed how it's all of the games from around that time which are the ones that Rockstar seem to have largely disassociated themselves from? You know, at least in terms of updates or sequels. I don't think Bully underperformed because of its lack of quality. I think it's more that it really did just go against the grain of everything else that Rockstar were working on beforehand. I mean, you go from something like the GTA series where you're given free reign to cause chaos in these humongous open worlds, now to a game where you're a punk kid rebelling against teachers back in school.
Shut your mouth!
I mean, that's not tonal whiplash, that's tonal neck snap. But it also highlights a bygone era when Rockstar were far more likely to take greater risks with their IPs. Given the success of the GTA series back then, they were able to branch out and make more creative brands and titles, which is why we got things like Manhunt and case in point Bully. Whereas it seems nowadays they're far less likely to do that, handing over something as basic as remastering their own games to a third-person company, and just rehashing different versions of the same fucking games over and over.
Of course.
Bully still shines as an example of when the creativity in the industry was still at an all-time peak. And while it might not have the appeal of the GTA series or the dark, brooding atmosphere of Manhunt 1 and 2, it's still an absolutely stellar title that every self-confessed Rockstar fan needs to experience.
Isn't that nice?
That is, if they can somehow break away from counting down to GTA 6's launch date in between sniffing their own farts on Twitter. But then again, I think we've actually got a better chance of Rockstar making a Bully 2 before that happens.
I have no more assignments for you, Jimmy. I'll miss these afternoons we've spent together.